Tibbits. I am so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Kim.
I'm doing a dance because I just adore you. So thank you for taking the time. It took us a while to get on the mic because you are so busy. And I love that. I love it that you're busy. I can't wait to ask you all sorts of questions.
Oh, that's sweet.
Megan, I feel like our beginnings of our lives have particular staying power. Wow. I'll just start that one again. Our beginnings, Megan, have a lot of staying power, right? The way we begin with our families and our hometowns, where we start. And I know, we can switch some of those things up, but your beginning seems to have uniquely prepared you for the life you have. You have a weird job. And you grew up as a member of the Partridge Family.
Indeed.
Will you tell me about that and tell our listeners about this grand beginning?
Yes. So I grew up in a small town of Cairo, Michigan, and my mom and dad, my mom was a teacher, my dad was a banker. They quit their jobs. We got a motorhome. We threw a bunch of crazy instruments in the back and became a family band.
Of course you did.
And toured around the Midwest mainly. Sometimes we do a tour to California or the coast, either coast, but so Living Truth was our name. And 5 shows a week, Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday night, 2 on Sundays.
Oh my God.
Thought it was a normal life for a kid.
Okay. I have so many questions about this. You have said just like the bullet point version of that at the Oaks a couple times. I want to know, first of all, so this was your mom, your dad, your sister,
and my aunt and my uncle.
And your aunt and your uncle.
Yes.
Okay. So so how old were you when this started?
They started before I was born, and then so I grew up into it. I was
really did.
Born into the band.
Okay. And so do you know anything about how this worked? Like, did your mom and dad sit people down at dinner and say, here's the thing. I know I'm an accountant and a teacher. Is that what your dad is? Banker and a teacher. But now we're going to play the banjo. Like, how does that happen?
Right. So my mom was in a family band also.
Oh my God.
So they were called, her maiden name was Bauman. They were called the Bauman Bread of Life Bearers because she had 7 brothers and sisters. Her dad was a band director and her mom was an evangelist at 15.
Wow.
So the band director, my grandpa, band director, said every kid will learn a different instrument. So they were kind of like a band, like a proper band.
Right.
So my mom played the French horn, like they're, so they would go on the road. They would play the music and my grandma would preach the word.
Wow.
And so it was kind of just maybe a normal thing to do. So I think when when my mom was in college, she was in bands and my dad was like, a rocker in Minnesota.
A rocker banker.
In Minnesota. Drove to Michigan, found Jesus on the way to Michigan, met my mom. I think they just, sat around fireplaces and played music. And that's how they fell in love. So it's kind of like being a band was maybe
in the
natural.
Yeah. I would say that is an unbelievable story. And I love it that that was completely normal for you. Yep. So here's my question for you. Clearly you exited the womb with a euphonium pushed into your face. Learn how to do this, kid.
Exactly.
So there's definitely a leaning, but have you ever gone through a time when you thought, this is for the birds? Like, forget my family legacy, or was this always a foregone conclusion? I will be a full-time musician. That's my life.
No, for some reason it didn't click when I became an adult that was an option for me. So we came off the road when I was in about 6th grade. So my sister and I could be normal kids and play sports and do plays like normal kids, right?
Right. Sure.
And so when I went to college for a music education degree. I graduated with my bachelor's degree in K-12 music education. I was going to stay in Michigan and be a teacher. It didn't occur to me that I could do music as a job performing.
Yeah.
And so
Why do you think, Megan? Why not?
maybe I didn't have my family for the family band. I don't know.
You
I
were a
don't know what
solo
the
act.
disconnect
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't. Even a boyfriend broke up with me and he said, we're not going to work because you're going to go and be a musician. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm going to stay here and be a teacher. Who becomes, how do I, that
Wow.
wasn't a thought for me.
Sure.
So how interesting that I am here in Los Angeles being a musician now.
Turns out you were headed that way.
Turns out he broke up with me for a good reason.
How about that he knew that before you knew that?
Literally, like a little prophetic, maybe. I don't know.
That's super interesting to me. That's such an interesting story to me because I also never considered being a writer, certainly not a novelist. Who does that, right? I didn't know anyone doing that, but you knew people doing this. And so that's interesting that it took a bit.
Yeah. And it happened by accident. The Lord is so kind. Kim, the Lord is kind because if he would have told me to move to LA, I would have had so many reasons not to, and maybe tried to be like, oh, you meant this, right? You meant stay in Michigan and teach, right? By going to LA.
Michigan, Los Angeles. They sound a lot alike.
Michigan, Angeles. Yeah. So, but what happened was I graduated college a little bit late. Thank you, music degree, for having one credit per class. My friend had convinced me to make a little EP, a little 5-song EP. I had written songs my whole life, but I never thought about putting it out. So he was like, make this EP. I was like, okay, if you force me to, sure. And so I did, had my little EP release party, got on a plane the next day, told my friends, hey, I'm just going to LA to visit. My sister lived there at the time. I'll see you in 2 weeks, So I go to LA and I never come home.
How long ago was that?
That was now about 14 years.
More than 2 weeks?
More than 2 weeks. They're still waiting with their porch lights on for me to come home.
Turns out you found your spot. I love that. I love it when God tricks us into doing what we should do.
That's literally what he did, Kim. He tricked me. The most gracious trick of life.
Right. I mean, he's kind about it, but I think sometimes he thinks you're not going to do this unless I help you. So,
yep.
Okay. So you're in LA and you make beautiful music. Your most recent song just released last week from when we're recording. I'm so excited. We're going to talk all about that. I would love to hear a little bit about how this works. So particularly the creative process. I'm fascinated by that because I spent a lot of time with writing and with words on paper and, building things from scratch. And so I'm always interested in how other creatives do that in other spheres or other genres. So for example, I feel like writers have quite a bit of outside pressure. So in other words, I need to have a presence on social media and I need to be doing speaking engagements and, writing newsletters or things like that, a host of things that don't necessarily they're not the writing, but they're important to be able to continue to do the writing. So I'm positive that your life has that too, right? Most creative lives have that. And maybe it's even more that you feel that more heavily in LA. How does that work for you? Do you have things like that? Does the music business require you to kind of balance that pressure of things that make the plate spin, but they're not actually the plate? Does that make sense? Oh my
goodness. Every part of that is correct. There is so much else to do that there is not a lot of space left for what I actually want to do. Right? You know what I'm saying? The creative part, the writing of the song. Like, no, we gotta post on Instagram. Now there's another platform. We gotta figure that one out. And now we gotta make all of the surrounding things, but also nobody's going to listen or want to work with me if I don't have a presence on there. So now I have to put my creativity into what do I post? And then how do I market it? What's the business side? How am I also eating dinner, affording to eat dinner
Right.
while I'm
On the daily while you're
doing
making
this
these things.
because these things that I like to do don't make me money yet. So I have to do this. So it's been 10 years of that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So how do you do
Yes.
that? Asking for a friend myself, because that you just described you described what I am doing in my own life, but also what our coaching clients are doing. And when we go to writers retreats and just other friends who are writers in that sphere, they're not writing songs, but they're saying exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
The hustle of trying to figure out how to remain in front of people when the work is actually not in front of people. Like the actual creation of people, of your work or of your song, your chapter is very alone.
Yes.
So how do you balance that? Please tell me.
Man, can you I think reverse card. Can you tell me?
No, I sure don't know. I mean, I
Right.
guess it makes me feel good that I'm not the only one.
You're
I'm
definitely
sorry
not
that
the
it's for
only
you
one.
too.
No, and I we're in this together, and I feel like all creatives are in this together. So let this be an encouragement to a listener who is feeling this way, but it's also maybe a little bit spiritual because I feel like the physical representation of what we're doing, a lot of it's underground, a lot of it's under the surface. Nobody sees it. You feel like, what the heck am I doing?
Yeah.
And then you're building this character, this person that you are becoming, and God is doing things in our character on the underground. Nobody can see it, because if we get above ground without the character to sustain what we're doing, then we are crushed by the weight of all of it. And so I don't know, in this moment, I'm hoping that there is an encouragement even for me that the underground work is so important. And so we can build something really beautiful in the incubation time that can sustain where we're going when we get above ground.
So well said. Yes. Yeah. And there is some sort of comfort in knowing that we are not alone, that that our friendship is sustaining, but also that the God who wired us really does not care one whit about who's looking and who's applauding and who's not. So like remembering that over and over, who am I working for really?
Yes.
That's a good reset.
Whose applause is really going to matter at the end of the day, and not change every moment when we succeed or not. That's
the truth. That's the truth. We'll talk about that up and down in just a second. But first, let's talk about your love life.
Oh, let's talk about it.
A little bit of a pivot. I have had the honor of meeting your delightful fiance, Teddy, whom I love. Not the way you do, but he is so great. You guys are a phenomenal couple. I just adore him and you together. Here's a quick side note that I will always be campaigning for you to release an album together. I've been in the room and swooning to a point of being a little bit creeper groupie.
I love it.
When you guys sing together. Yeah, you do until I have a restraining order. So I just would like for you to just oblige me sometime and make an album.
Yes. Well, family band is in the blood, Kim. So I think it's bound to happen.
Okay, I feel good about that. It seems rather inevitable.
Right.
So here is my question about you and Teddy. You have a growing career. You are busting down doors and knocking on doors and writing beautiful music and performing it and traveling. Teddy's doing the same thing. He does his own thing and his own travel and his own work. So you're in love. So I'm so curious about this, how you do that well, because you're kind of an adjacent field. I mean, you're doing kind of some of the same thing. How do you encourage each other and inspire each other, but at the same time have that kind of autonomy to do your own thing and cheer each other on with that?
Yes, that is That is such an interesting place to be. So for the listener, I just got recently engaged to my fiance Teddy. And
So great.
and he is a musician. He right now he's on tour with Andy Grammer as his keyboardist, guitar, dancing, singing extravaganza. So
Amazing.
so he goes on tour for a month or more at a time. So, and then he just recently got back and now I'm going to leave. So it is
Yeah.
quite the thing to figure out. And it's interesting because it really, it's it's a space that keeps us always encouraged because we are each other's cheerleader.
Hmm.
And yet it's a space also to experience the utmost humility because
Hmm.
our careers kind of they're going like this together in a similar direction, but when his is high, I'm like, who am I? What am I doing? I should quit. When
Right.
mine is high, it's this ebb and flow
Hmm.
um of figuring out how to walk together and encourage each other when also we're trying to, yes, do our thing. And eventually we do want to do music together and tour together, and we have some songs out together. And it's interesting, the internet breaks when we do something together, and then when I do something on my own, I'm like, wait, you watched that, can you watch this? No. Oh, I'm boring to you. Cool. My harp isn't enough for you. Cool.
Harp isn't. Listen, people love. So we know you're in love. You're singing together. It's just catnip for all of us. But
Right.
I also love your solo stuff too.
Thank you. No, it's a beautiful thing to see that people really respond to us doing something together, which is really fun. And I think that is part of the end goal is to be our duo and bring our future, hopefully, kiddos on the stage and
with their
do
French
the whole
horns.
thing with their French horns, baby French horn.
Yeah, that's really creepy. Don't do that. I just want you to know it's very, very sweet to act like you two just, sing some songs together. And it's so nice and people like it that you're together. And I'm just going to say, how can I be polite to every person I've ever heard in karaoke? There are a lot of people who think they can do what you're doing. And I would say 99.9% of them are, it's just a really good thing to keep in home.
You're so nice.
You two, it's not just that you two are phenomenal musicians together. Separately, you are ridiculous. I mean, you just have phenomenal voices. The intuition of how you approach the music and the storytelling. I mean, it is so stinking good. So you didn't say that part, but I will say that part. It's ridiculous. Your voice, ridiculous. And I love it in the best kind of ridiculous. So, okay, I'll wait for that. That. And your baby French horn, don't.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Megan.
Yes.
You have the weirdest job. And we would love a peek behind the curtain of how this actually works. And I have two parts of this question. One, what are some of the most fantastic experiences you've had in this job? So maybe that's, performance experiences alone or with other musicians, or maybe in a particular venue or a particular season of your life. You just take that wherever you want. A highlight reel. And then two, I would also like to hear about the times when, just as you mentioned, you have wondered, what am I doing? Yes. Isn't it time to not do this? It's too hard. I don't want to do it. So I would love for you to keep that real, because I know lots of folks who are interested in music. I mean, even in my own family, my mom is a musician, and she was a wonderful classical musician, still is. But she always said to me, you only go into music if you cannot happily do anything else.
Wow.
Because the intimation to her was, this is a hard road. This is going to be a little rough. And so you need to have just to know anything else will not quite be enough for me. So I'm sure there've been the moments when you've thought, maybe this isn't enough for me. So both sides, the highlight reel and also the keep it real.
The keep it real. Let me keep it real for a second, because that is this week. I'm like, I give up.
Yeah.
This, I've had enough. Had enough no's. I've had not enough yeses. Lord, are you giving me the green light to go back and work at Cold Stone?
Right. Happy
Where
and
I did
caloric.
Work.
Yeah. Right. That's the question. Totally. And I think people need to hear that, because if we only see the pretty parts, it's just easy to think, oh, well, this was just a really clear trajectory. She got in the band and then everything's gone up from there.
Yeah. It is a constant, humbling. I think the Lord is sweetly, annoyingly intentional with his ways of keeping us humble, because here's what I have to remember. He cares about me. So he cares about what I care about, but he is not concerned about my success in the way that the world is concerned about it. And I am so concerned about my success
right.
in the way that the world sees it. Right. I am a people pleaser. I am, what does everyone else think? Do they think I'm doing okay? Okay, cool. Then I'm doing okay. And so the Lord is constantly reminding me, hey, like, Megan, I love you. I am concerned about your character. I'm concerned about who you at the end of your life, what we have built together, that lasts and matters. And now that we have the internet, your song might still be on the internet for after you go, but also Instagram probably won't exist. And also TikTok won't be a thing. And also Spotify will be singing in space. I don't know. So this stuff doesn't actually matter to me, Megan. So can we come back to what matters? So yes, the road is tough and I struggle with that daily. The highlight reel is what sometimes I need to remind myself of the good things. I don't know. I might be naturally on the side that forgets the things that have gone well.
For sure. That is
like there could be 10 things that go well and one thing and one comment on Instagram that says shave your arms. And
wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did you just say that hypothetically, or
that's real? The internet is a terrifying place, Kim. True story. I post this really encouraging, like this is what God's teaching me. First of all, people like, you don't have your harp, I don't want to listen. And then my arm is in the picture. And yes, I have hair on my arms.
No,
I don't shave my arms. And people, you don't need to point that out, my friends.
Hold on a minute. I think it's time for the Iowan to say something. Is that LA? Do people in LA shave their arm?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you.
You just said it like it was a confessional. I have hair on my arms. I don't shave it. Okay. Did everybody hear me? Do you hear me, listeners? It is time to step away from the Google comments. It's time to step away from the comment section. You missed it. You missed what she was saying. You were looking at the follicles on her forearms. Oh, Megan, I'm so sorry. I mean, I have my versions of those, but you're right. And there's something about that added visual component that is like a minefield. It's a minefield for me. I mean, it is. I have to push it all the time, my own heart, to be like, it's not the important part. It's not the important part. Yes, look at the age spots. Look at the wrinkles. That means that you're still alive and have had a beautiful life. You know what I'm saying? Because the feedback initially is this, like, for me, it's a fear of they're not going to hear me because they're looking at my wrinkles or they're looking at the spinach on my
hair on my forearms.
I mean, I didn't even have that on my list. Do I need to?
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
But all that to say, have some compassion, you guys. I mean, people watch, especially if you are weighing into someone who has to do this for their job. Just a little compassion, a little bit of humanity, really trying to hear the message and not stare at the messenger. So I hear you. I hear you.
Yes. So all that to say, I have trouble looking over the one thing, but the highlight reel, God is kind, Kim. When if I were to tell Megan even 3 years ago, what would I have stages that I would have been, the people that I would have worked with, I would have passed out.
Isn't
So
that
I
so
am
beautiful?
it's beautiful, and God is kind. Even the way you and I met,
Hmm.
working with Bob Goff. Are you are you kidding me? I remember sitting in my break room working at a fireman's credit union as a nobody
Mhm.
in the break room. It was the only book I could afford. I picked it up at Barnes and Noble.
Wow.
It had because it had balloons on the front, and I was just this huge fan of Bob.
Mhm.
And the way he wrote made me want to live my life with passion. And
Right.
and now we
You're buddies.
together get to just call him friend and
So fun.
go to his retreat center
And
and
you've toured
speak.
with
And
him. And I'm so excited
yeah.
that you said, Megan, that even 3 years ago, I'm returning to this over and over again in my heart and my head lately, the idea of remembering, and that I'm
Mm,
so bad at that. I'm gunning for something, even praying for something, and then the
yes.
moment passes and all I can see is in front of me,
Yeah.
instead of taking the second to look back and think, oh my gosh, look at the track record of God's faithfulness. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
And you and
Yes.
I met about that about 3 years
Yeah.
ago, and you were
Yes.
just starting to say, I don't know, I think I'm going to be done. I'm almost done. This has been
Yeah.
too hard.
Exhausted.
And the time between that conversation by a fire pit to now, I love, yes, God is good. And also you are working your tushy off. And
Thanks,
those two
Kim.
things are beautiful in tandem together. So I love watching your successes. I love seeing when you are performing with these heroes of yours and that they're the ones saying, dang, Megan Tibbits, how about that? So that is so much fun for me. And it's also
Oh,
so fun to hear you talk about it now because someone else listening is at the fire pit moment, right?
yeah.
They also need to
Yes.
think, man, is there anything left of this crazy
Yeah.
dream? And there are folks who maybe tuned in halfway through, right? So all they see is that you're on stage with Brandon Lake or you're on stage with Jonathan
Reynolds.
McReynolds, like big people. Maybe if they just start there, they don't know about
Right.
all the hours, all the
Right.
years, all the tears, all the work that went into that. And so it's so fun to hear you talk about it today because I've had a little bit of a front row seat to see different points on that roller
You
coaster.
sure have.
Um, so you mentioned young Megan,
Mhm.
and if you would have told her what a crazy
Mm.
life you have, I had the very extreme joy of reading some early bits of what you are writing right now in your
Yeah.
upcoming book. And so I've gotten to get to know you a little bit through the eyes of younger Megan. I want
Mhm.
you to talk to me about 85-year-old Megan. Who's
Mm.
that? What is she going to be saying when she's sitting on the front porch or in front of millions of people, still telling stories, still singing songs? What's that woman like? What's your hope?
Wow. Oh my gosh. I have never thought about that in my life. And that is a very beautiful way to think about life. Kim, can I just say, you are an extraordinary woman.
No.
You, listeners,
Thank you.
do you understand the gift that you have right now to be listening to Kim and her wisdom and her kindness? If you ever have the joy of meeting her, it's the same. Kim blows me away every time that I talk to her. So
You
just
are way too
throw
kind
in
to
that
me.
nugget, even the fact that you would have the wisdom to ask something like this. Wow. Anyway,
No,
so
thank you.
85-year-old Megan, oh, Jesus, let her be.
Hmm.
Let her be at peace. Let her be content. Let her see what is important and be focused on and remind the Megan of now of what actually matters. Because so much of this that concerns me and brings tears to my eyes on a regular daily basis of stress and frustration, 85-year-old Megan's like, oh,
Yeah.
sweet Megan, that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is the way you love people and how you make people feel, and that someone would leave a conversation with you encouraged and lifted up and having hope for their life and realizing how beautiful they are. And 85-year-old Megan is just reminding people of what matters and that they matter and that all at the end of the day that remains is love and being at peace with life and where God has brought you, and not envying other people's stories, but actually living the fullness of your own. Because how do we get to breathe this air and be in family and come across the things in life that God has custom made us to come across? So that is 85-year-old Megan. Oh my gosh, I love her. I love her.
Awesome. Me too. I will be 178 when you're 85, but I hope I still know you.
100 years old.
I just love it. That's so awesome. Okay. I know you just released Solid Ground. I'm just going to tease right here. I've never done this before, but Megan has her guitar in our presence. And so after this conversation, we're just going to do a little recording of that. And maybe if you just head to YouTube, you can see it. I don't know. We'll see if we like you enough. Okay, Megan, usually I end our conversations by asking a very nerdy book question about books that people love. And you are welcome to talk about books you love. But because you are a musical artist, I would love to hear the music version of that question. So it's always a two-parter. One, what artist or song do you return to over and over? I mean, something you love. It could be more than one thing that you love, that you recommend to people, or that, you've been listening for a long time and you're still like, oh my gosh, this is such good music. Okay. So that's part one.
Yes.
Part two, something that you're recently discovering or looking forward to coming out on the shelves pretty soon. Like, what's exciting for you now? New.
As a consumer of music and as a musician. Okay.
Consumer, totally consume.
I love that. So I will always come back to listen to John Mayer.
Okay.
He and Sarah Bareilles are the reason that I write music, and Brooke Fraser.
Okay.
Because the way that they tell a story with their lyrics, it's like in John Mayer's song, My Stupid Mouth, you are at the table on this awkward date with him, playing chess with the salt and pepper shakers. How does he transport me into a restaurant in the most awkward, you can't make eye contact experience?
Like I just feel that talking about hearing you, I'm having hives. So yes, some good writing, right?
Yes. So the way he and Sarah Bareilles write move me. They awesome. Transport me into the place that they are. Split screen sadness. We are across right now. We are splitting the screen and we are talking, and we get to connect, but we don't get to be in person. And then just Sarah Bareilles captures the intensity of the human emotion and makes it the most beautifully sonic thing that you have ever heard.
So cool.
Bluebird.
I hope they're hearing this, Sarah.
Literally,
John.
Sarah John. Hi, I love you. You're the reason I do music. No big deal. And so, yes, those are, I will always come back to John Mayer. Nickel Creek is a group that I will also always come back to.
I used to love them. I need to brush them off. That's some wonderful songwriting there too. Okay, great. Awesome.
So those are the classics. Yes. Artists that I'm loving these days, I just discovered this artist, Chris Renzema, and I hope to work with him soon. Have you listened to his music?
My daughter Anna loves him. She's headed to see him in concert pretty soon.
Yes.
Is he from Michigan? No.
He wrote there's a song about Michigan, so I have to look that up. I'm not sure.
Okay, but you like him. You like his music.
I love him. I feel like, when maybe you've experienced this, you read a book and you're like, wait, in another life, I think I wrote that book.
Yeah.
But totally. But also I kind of wish I could have written that too.
Right.
So I feel like some of his songs, I'm like, excuse me, did you read my journal entries and write my heart song?
I love
without
it.
me?
That's a huge compliment to him. Because he's tapping into something super specific and yet universul. So hard to do.
Totally. He has a song called Let the Ground Rest. And it's basically like, hey, if you're striving, but but how it works in crops is sometimes you got to stop planning for a second
Let it
and just let it rest.
That's right.
What? And then he has a song called The Right Things. And it says, I want to hold on to the right things and let go of the rest. That's what 85-year-old Megan is still singing.
Totally.
So that's my newest discovery, that
I love it.
Lord Jesus, I will work with him. So yeah.
All the people we've mentioned, please call Megan.
She's ready. Yes. John, Sarah. Amen.
Ready. Amen. Megan Tibbits, thank you so much for joining me on For Real. You are a gift to me. I love hanging out with you in real life and on a split screen. And I just love watching what's happening with you and knowing there's so much grit behind it and so much prayer and just the most open heart. So Godspeed to you. I hope that your music gets into the millions and millions of ears that need to hear it. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. You are a joy of my life. I can't believe I get to know you, let alone do these fun things with you and be living life together. You are a blessing and a gift of a human being. These listeners, please go anywhere Kim speaking, because I will shout her name from the mountaintop forever. So
we're getting ridiculous. Thank you, Megan. You are way too kind to me. Thanks for being on For Real.